everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you to our first ever season preview and tournament recap episode. I'm your host, Danie Proby.
And I'm Ari Nittickman. I am so excited to bring you detailed analysis and insights on all the action that happened this past week.
So before we even dive into the tournament coverage, Ari, why don't you kind of explain a little bit about what's happening in Richmond?
Sure, SD 38. Well, we had a few perhaps friendly games going on. We had Palmer play McRoberts and Richmond High play McMath. Now, this is maybe foreshadowing almost for the tournament in the sense that these were pretty lopsided games. We had Palmer beating McRoberts 12-0. I think that was a sesame seed bagel. And then we had Richmond High beat McMath 13-3.
And as you said, this is foreshadowing for this whole kind of episode, but it might even be foreshadowing for the entire junior high school experience, because it seems like it's the difference between the schools that had players that played club and trained over the pandemic versus the schools where their entire roster is completely new. So we might be seeing a lot more lopsided scores this season than ever before.
Alright, so let's bring it to the main course. We had the Myles Winch Invitational Tournament this past week. Danie, let's get into the details. What happened?
Let's get into the details. So I got there after the first couple pool play games already started, and so teams had already been warmed up. They were already on the field cramping. Left, right, and center, I see people dropping like flies. So these kids were just not used to the heavy workload that is required in a full day tournament. And I was able to kind of watch Stratford Hall play at the beginning, and they were looking pretty clean, and I moved over to the other side, and the games were definitely a lot tighter in the other brackets. So there was a bit of excitement in one of the pools. There was a three-way tie for first, and so Burnaby North beat Burnaby Mountain by 2. Then Burnaby North lost to Kwantlen Park by a few, I think by 3. And then Burnaby Mountain beat Kwantlen Park, I think by 4, or even more than that. So there was a three-way tie for first place. So that's a tough position to be in, because if you did end up beating one of these teams and losing to another, you potentially could be knocked out of the bracket. And so unfortunately, that is what happened to Kwantlen Park. They were -2 point differential, and Burnaby North was -1 point differential, and Burnaby Mountain finished at the top. So we saw Burnaby Mountain and Burnaby North moving on into the bracket, and Kwantlen Park was knocked out. However, Kwantlen Park finished the tournament strong. They won out the rest of the games to finish in 9th place, so they had a really great tournament.
Congrats, Kwantlen. Continuing on the theme of bagels, we could say, what we want to bring up is just, again, the parity of this tournament, where we had the Semiahmoo, who ended up being the 12th place. They were even bageling teams in the pool play and bracket play. So, again, it's just who was playing club and who was playing, around last season is really helping their teams out this year.
So I had the distinct pleasure and privilege of being on the sideline for the STMC versus Burnaby North quarterfinal matchup. Now, it was really tight. STM was up by 1, and the point was lasting. I was like, oh my gosh, this point has been 15 minutes. And then I looked at my clock and, oh, it's been 20 minutes, 25. It was legitimately a 30-minute point where Burnaby North ended up scoring to push Universe. Okay, so everyone's exhausted. There's people cramping. People that had gotten injured on the field were now like very fully rested and able to come back in for that Universe point. And STMC, I think they got an early turn. Burnaby North ended up also turning the disc over, kind of getting closer to the doorstep. And Burnaby North played really great defense on the next possession, and it was a stall 9 huck that went up, and it just was a dime to one of the STMC women matching players into the end zone for the win. It was stall 9. How disheartening is that for a team?
I mean, Burnaby North, you could tell from the sideline on the Instagram, they were going nuts. They were supporting their team like crazy, and that energy was really helping out the defense. And yeah, sometimes the luck and the stall 9 huck is what makes a game. So
really tremendous effort for both teams. And I do want to shout out Shannon on Burnaby North, because in that 30-minute point, I think she was getting it like every other under. It was incredible. I don't think that she ever looked tired at all. So big shout out to you for that heart that you showed for that entire matchup. So STMC got that Universe point win. They ended up matching up against Stratford Hall, and they weren't able to convert a W in that game. but then they ended up finishing third because they also beat Burnaby Mountain on Universe.
Wow.
This team,
Clutch.
they've got a lot of heart. They're very clutch. I think they were also losing by a few points to Burnaby Mountain and ended up going like score to win. So congratulations to STMC. What a great start to your season.
Well, let's move over to the Stratford Sabres, my alma mater. I've coached a bunch of them. We've coached a bunch of them since they were like grade 2 or something.
Basically in diapers.
And that was kind of the story of their tournament. So they ended up placing second, which is an amazing result.
Okay.
From the sideline analysis, they were playing really great technical ultimate. Really great unders, good clearing, good handler movement. But it was quite windy. And when it's windy, sometimes the prettiest ultimate doesn't always win. You know, huck and pin might work a bit better. People that are bigger and can catch dull land hucks like STM, those are the kind of teams that prevail. So Stratford Hall did great, but they ended up losing to Eric Heimber in the finals, mainly because of that size and maybe, hucking differential.
Moving on to Eric Hamber, what a tournament they had, really.
Munchin'.
They were just feasting, and so they looked a little vulnerable early on with a 6-5 win over Seaquam, which was a bit of a blemish, or definitely stood out on their scores for the weekend, or for the day rather. But they basically coasted through every other team, including finishing without having been scored on in the final, which is, It's pretty incredible. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they were doing a little bit more intentional poaching, and so they had like a handler slot on the open side that a lot of teams just didn't have an answer for. People haven't seen this kind of creative defense, and the pressure that Eric Hamber was able to put on teams, people just couldn't handle it. And then on the turn, they had the composure. The team's led by Alicia, and she just is very calm and confident with the disc, and they just slice and diced themselves to the victory. So the first win of the season goes to Eric Hamber. Now, Ari, I have a question for you.
Okay, hit me.
What do you think about a team having a big win early on in the season? What does that do for them?
Well, I can't speak from personal experience because I didn't win much in early tournaments, but I think it must give them some confidence. Now, they have to be careful, as we'll see later on. They're having some tough league matchups coming up, and some of those teams weren't in the tournament. So if you go into that game thinking, yeah, we just want a tournament, we're the best, you might not warm up as focused, you might not be ready to go, and you might get crushed in the league game. So we'll have to see.
We will see. Finally, I would really like to shout out Burnaby Mountain because they're unranked. I think no one really saw them coming, and the fact that they were able to make it into semifinals is a testament to their team culture and the hard work that they've already been putting in this season. When I was watching them, I was mostly impressed with their calm swinging of the disc. Their handler movement was really, really strong, spearheaded by Mijuli, just a phenomenal thrower, great vision. It was just so great to see this team have such big success at the beginning of the season.
And my question for you, Danie, is, you taught there a few years ago, so how much of their success is because of you?
I'm going to take 0% credit for their success. I have been able to coach a few of the players on that team before, and it was really nice to see them play. So they had a couple of juniors that had played up, and I take 0 credit for them either. They're just great people, and they work really hard. So I do take credit for cheering them on.
Yeah, it's great.
In their
Go
success.
Lions.
Go Lions. Absolutely. So, Ari, do you have anything else you want to say about this tournament? It was really exciting. What was any key insights from you other than the parity?
Well, I think the one key point is it's interesting to see that all of these senior players were juniors 2 years ago before COVID. And so what you were mentioning about how Eric Hamber was using the poach and maybe these zones, you're not allowed to zone or do that stuff in junior. So it's really those teams that have played club and those players that know how to deal with that stuff that's really going to push those teams to the top.
Excellent analysis.
Thank you. As I said, detailed analysis and insights on this ESPN show.
Now moving into the future, we have a lot of games that are set to be happening this Friday and into next week, and we will be posting on our stories kind of the matchups to allow you to vote. One thing I must say, the voting so far, especially for the tournament, was pretty darn accurate. I think we were at 80% or higher accuracy on the game voting. So keep voting. It's exciting to see all of the engagement and to see how accurate we can all be based on the very limited knowledge we have of all of these teams. So Ari, all that said, there are some spicy games that are supposed to be happening this week. Can you tell me which ones you're most excited for and why?
Well, let's start with the Burnaby School District. We got Burnaby Central playing New West.
So that's the Burnaby School District and also the New West School District.
And also Heritage Mountain from Port Moody. So.
It's Fraser North is the district.
Okay, great. So Fraser North District, New West versus Burnaby Central. I myself am coaching New West, so I'm very excited. It's a lot of their first Ultimate game ever. And Burnaby Central is an interesting matchup for us because they have one great player. His name's Brandon Sun. He's played Mischief. I've coached him through Elevate, but he's also coaching the team, which shows some things. What do you think when a player is coaching? What does that mean for the team?
Generally means there's maybe not a champion within the walls of the school that knows a lot about Ultimate. It's definitely a big burden on that player specifically, and there's only so much one person can do. So it's going to be a great matchup because I think both teams, besides Brandon's son, are fairly evenly matched. So I expect that game to be a real barn burner.
Barn burner for sure. What games are piquing your interest, Danie?
Well, if we're going to go to the South Fraser district, I'm really excited to see how Fleetwood Park and Guildford Park play against each other. I have no idea what's been happening with these teams. I assume that there were some Valkyrie Vortex type players happening in the club season, so I think that matchup is going to be really telling for what's going to be happening for the rest of the season.
Great.
Now, moving into the North Shore, there was a couple games that were really interesting to think about, but one in particular caught your eye.
Yes, well, Sutherland versus Handsworth, as you said earlier, I think it's going to be a barn burner. Sutherland, led by Aiden McKibben, Georgia Smith, they've got a ton of big names, and they're playing Danae Jan leading Handsworth. So I think it's a battle of the superstars for this team. I'm curious to see what systems they run, and I'm curious to see who comes out on top.
Did you know that Alex Lamb, the head coach for the U20 team, is also coaching Sutherland?
I did not. That is a long commute, in my opinion.
Very dedicated. So he clearly has a lot of faith in the Sutherland squad. So it's going to be an exciting matchup. That score will also be quite telling for how the rest of the season in the North Shore is going to go. So Richmond, we had some scores come in, so we kind of got a little bit of information. So because of that, this next matchup was really interesting to us. Can you break it down?
Well, we've got Palmer playing Richmond High. And again, there was a couple friendlies, and so who knows how friendly they really were, if they were rolling lines or if they were stacking the lines. But we've got some good players on both teams in Palmer and Richmond High, and it's really, we don't know. The unknown.
We don't know, and so we're excited to know.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now Vancouver.
Yes, well, why don't you've had a good look at Eric Hammer this past weekend, but they're playing an experienced Point Grey Hounds team, well coached, lots of experienced players. So what do you think about that matchup?
I wish I could watch this game. It's interesting that this is the first game that's happening for those teams. The fact that they're playing in the first week, I think, is really interesting. So we get a good first look at each team's strategy. Just playing in a tournament gives you so much experience and you grow so much in such a short period of time. I think you have to think Eric Hammer has the edge in this first matchup, but both teams will be jockeying to kind of see what the other team's tools are, and it will be really helpful and useful for their training for the rest of the season because I expect this to be two teams that will be in semifinals at provincials. So Point Grey, I think that they usually play a really nice, balanced game, really pretty ultimate, and I think that a lot of their normal cutting skills and things that they excel at will be perfectly challenged by Eric Hammer's tight, aggressive defense. What do you think?
Yeah, again, I'm just excited to see. We've coached much more Point Grey players than Eric Hammer, so, personally, maybe I'd love to see them come through, but we'll just have to see. Lastly, we've got another Vancouver matchup, Churchill versus David Thompson. Any insights there?
Well, Churchill has got Ryan Liu-Ying, Grace Liu, both top Mischief players. They're gunslingers. I really like the way that these two play, and so I assume the team built around them will be fitting into that playing style quite nicely. It's a bit of a run and gun team. They don't seem like the most conservative players, so their ultimate is very exciting. So expect lots of hucks, expect it to be really fun. Now, David Thompson, I think that they have a bit of a more kind of grinder team, so I think that this matchup is going to be really well matched. Katrina Casilla is on this team leading the charge, and I am very curious how this is going to go down.
Agreed.
So there you have it, folks. This is our first tournament recap, season preview from your Elevate Sports Frisbee Network. I'm your host, Danie Proby.
And I'm Ari Nittickman. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to see any specific games, specific content, DM the Elevate Ultimate IG account. Keep on voting, follow us, tell a friend about us, and have a great season, folks.
May your high school season be
Elevated.